I am a proud gay man who is made in the image of God, who is loved by God.
Truth be told, he's an accomplished author, award-winning contributor, and believes faith and your sexuality are not mutually exclusive. Jonathan Merritt, appreciate you spending some time with me today to chat.
Oh my gosh, Tony, the pleasure is all mine.
Thank you. Well, first off, the version of yourself today, how do you feel about him?
I think like most people, I would say, what day are you asking that question? Like some days I feel better about myself than others. I think I feel a lot better about myself and this version of myself than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago as a whole. And so, I was actually talking to my therapist about this yesterday. It's like, I think it goes up and down, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but always progressing. And so I feel pretty good about who I am today.
Just a few months ago, to come out on your own terms and to speak your identity into true existence. Walk me through that time and this journey for you.
Yeah, so in my 20s, I was a religion writer. I was an author. I was sort of writing in the Christian space, and I was serving at a church, a mega church down in Atlanta. One of the kinds of mega churches where it's not okay to be gay, which I think is most mega churches. And I woke up one day and I got a Google alert that sort of notified me that there was an article that had been written online, and the title was Jonathan Merritt, Come Out. And this was an article that was written by someone that years earlier I had considered to be a friend, somebody that I had given my trust to, but somebody that I realized later was not worthy of that trust. And so I had a decision to make. You can deny, you can blame, you can lie, and I didn't opt for any of those. I didn't really know what I was at that time. I hadn't given myself permission to have that kind of conversation with myself, but I did over the years following that. I left Atlanta. I moved to New York City, and it's funny because when you talk about coming out, and this is something that's I think really unique to gay people, to queer people, to people who are part of this community, when people will say like, "Well, when did you come out?" You almost think like, which time? It sort of is a misnomer. You're always coming out. You come out to your family, and then you have to kind of come out on social media these days because everybody is to some degree kind of a public figure if you're on social media. And so you got to come out to everybody in those public spaces. And then you have to keep coming out to all of the people who didn't get the memo or who weren't logged on to social media or who missed the post. And so I think for a long, long time living in New York City, I was living my authentic life with my friends and my family here. But then I realized that there was a moment where I felt like I owed something to my readers, to the people who were following me online. And so I decided, just shy of my 39th birthday, it was kind of a nice little bookend, 9 years later, to just say to everyone out there, this is who I am. I think most people, not all, but I think most people kind of new, which happens to a lot of us when we come out. People go, what else is new? But there were some people, I think, who were like, I didn't know that this was part of you, and that reaction was okay too.
In the Instagram post that you had referenced, I just want to read this off here. You said, "I want to enter the second half of life with more authenticity, alignment, and integrity than I exhibited in the first half." Do you feel like you accomplished that?
Yes. Yes. I think I would make one, slight edit to the way you asked that question. I think I'm accomplishing that. And I'm learning every day what it means to accomplish that. And, the average life expectancy of males in the United States is around 76. And it's a real weird experience to realize that you have 40 years behind you rather than in front of you. And I think that there are certain things that clarify when you come to that realization. You always know, there are these ideas about mortality and existence. You always know those things. but you know them in a cognitive way. And then you hit certain milestones and ages. And of course, the sages and the wise people and our ancestors who had passed this knowledge down, that there comes a time where you know it experientially, you know it in your bones. And when you do, your priorities begin to kind of shift, even if you don't want them to.
Okay, I want to talk about God. Here we go.
Okay.
You have both a Master of Divinity and a Master of Theology. Why was it so important for you to pursue the understanding of faith and religion?
Well, I mean, I'm somebody who values not just knowledge, but wisdom. And there's a difference. There's a difference. Knowledge is about information. Wisdom is information paired with experience. There's the phrase, the wisdom of the ages, or the wisdom of the sages. And so I think I intuitively knew that as I felt drawn to or called to this kind of way of living, this kind of way of being, this kind of vocation that I was walking out in my life, that I could do it one of two ways. I could do it pulling from this kind of shallow well of knowledge that I possess that was getting bigger slowly with age, but was limited to just, me, myself, and I. Or I could do what I could to swim in these big oceans of wisdom that had been passed down to me. And so those things come not just through things like sacred scriptures, which are important to people of any faith, but the wisdom of our ancestors, the kind of knowledge that has withstood the test of time, different versions of experience that come to us that are passed down by people who now live beneath the headstones or, in the life to come. And so I wanted to be formed by that. I think today there are a lot of folks who go, I got this, and I don't think that, by the way, the only way to access wisdom is through formal education. There's a kind of wisdom that you can access through that, but there's other kinds of wisdom that I've accessed just by sitting with people who have a lot of years, who have city miles on them, and just sort of soaking up the things that they've learned through their own experience. I don't think that you have to get a textbook that's been vetted by gatekeepers in order to absorb wisdom. But I do think that there's a kind of wisdom that you can find in those places. And so if I was going to engage these things, I didn't want to just shoot from the hip. I wanted to kind of pull down from the family tree of spiritual wisdom that I knew that I could be attached to if I decided to pursue that. And so that's why I did it.
Your queerness and your identity, how do you reconcile those two? Identity, sexuality, who you are, and your spirituality and religion and faith.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's a kind of crisis that's happening in religion right now. And I'm using religion in a generic sense because insofar as I can tell, it's happening to all religions. You can be Buddhist or Jewish, anyone that's kind of coming under a kind of institutional umbrella of spirituality. I find that there's a generational shift that's happening where there's this mistrust of institutions. And one of the reasons why I think people walk away from spirituality with a capital S is because they've been given a lowercase s version of spirituality and been told that's the only way to do it. I think one of the gifts of moving to New York City, where you can find all kinds of food and all kinds of people and all kinds of religious expressions and spiritualities, was beginning to wake up to the fact that there were lots of ways to do this thing that I had called Christianity. There was not just the way that I had been taught. I was raised in an evangelical home.
Yep.
And, that's a very conservative, politically and theologically way of being Christian. It's a fundamentalist way, a narrow way. It's very focused on who's in and who's out. And that way said that people like me were out, that we couldn't be included, that we weren't welcome at the table. And I was ready, 10 years ago, after I'd been out, almost 10 years ago, when I moved to New York City, I was ready to walk away from the whole thing because I had been given a false choice. I could be gay or I could be Christian. And it took me a long time to realize that those things were not polar opposites, that I didn't have to choose between those things, that I was capable of holding on to both of those things at the same time, and that actually that maybe my queerness or my gayness might be a portal through which I could enter more deeply into my faith. That I could actually appreciate the ways that God had made me other, the ways that God had made me different, the way that God had sort of made me separate. And that in some way, encountering my own gayness or queerness or embracing those parts of me, I was actually holding on to these parts, these divine reflections, what Christians call the image of God. That as I was able to get my arms more fully around those divine pieces of me that I'd been estranged from. So for me, not only was I able to integrate those two things, but what I was able to learn is that they were giving gifts to each other as I integrated them.
I love that. So here we are to today, flash forward to today, all
Yeah,
things considered, this incredible journey that you've been on, that you are currently on. What is your truth? Who and what is Jonathan Merritt today?
Man, any time that I always think of, there's lowercase t truths and there's the capital T truth. And my capital T truth is a composite of all those lowercase t truths. But I'll give you one of the lowercase t truths, which is reflecting something from that post, is that I am a proud gay man who is made in the image of God, who is loved by God. And I think one of the deepest realities of who we are is that we're loved by God. There's a priest who was also gay, although never really came to fully accept this side of himself. He died many years ago, a guy named Henri Nouwen. And he said that the three primary lies we tell ourselves is, I am what I do, I am what I have, and I am what other people say about me. I lived into those for so many years, and I still struggle with that. I still struggle to define myself. I am what I do. I am what I have. I am what other people say about me. And Henri said that the real truth about us is we are beloved. We are God's beloved. That whatever you call God or whatever name you use, I have friends who call God by all kinds of names. They call God universe or source, or they use different names to name God than the name I use to name God. Whatever you call God in your life, the most fundamental thing, the truest lowercase t truth about that God is that God loves you, and that God has nothing but love for you, that God loves you because God loves you because God loves you, because that's just what God does. That's just what God is. And even if you can't use any of those names to talk about God, if you can talk about love, I think we're talking about the same thing. And so what does it mean, rather than finding being in doing, instead just to exist, to just bask in the notion that today there is nothing that I can do to make God love me one iota more or less. There's nothing I can do to attract God's love or to subtract from God's love. I think that's one of the most liberating truths. That's part of the capital T truth of who I am that I'm living into, I guess, in this second half of life.
I love it. Y'all went to church today, let me tell you. Took him to church. Jonathan, thank you for living your truth and sharing it. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Tony.
To see more Truth Be Told, check us out at pluslifemedia.com and follow us at pluslifemedia. Until next time, let your truth be told.